In this update, we're going to go over my November forecast and give you an overview of what the month may look like. And it's going to start off on the cold side. In fact, this is on the backside of the coldest Halloween in many years. So by the time we head into that November 1st, in fact, we've got potentially 37 record low temperatures as 75% of the lower 48 will actually wake up with a freeze. And all these areas highlighted in the circle area, that is your potential record low. And for many areas further south, that is several weeks early this time of year. So that's a significant change in temperatures, and it's all on the backside of this massive plunge in the EPO, which is your Eastern Pacific Oscillation, that it took a sharp dip all the way down from that cold pull of air from the Yukon and all the way down into the Gulf Coast. But now it's going to be moderating as it shifts eastbound. As soon as we warm up in about 7 to 10 days, we're going to be seeing another massive plunge in the EPO and another significant cold blast around the 11th and 12th time frame. If you are in the market for a weather station, I highly recommend the Tempest from Weatherflow. It's a complete 5-in-1 system. It's all solar. It literally takes 10 minutes to install. They actually have a desktop version. You can be a part of the 60,000 and the Tempest community, and they also have an app you can download on your phone. If you like to purchase one of these, I do have a discount code, which is PALWeather10. It offers 10% off and free shipping. And I'll actually have this link in the description below, and you can possibly click on it and order one for yourself. So let's take a look at the setup going forward for the first week of November. We're going to have this ridge that's going to be starting to build across the west. This will be slowly migrating eastbound throughout the week. We are going to be watching these little clipper systems. There's going to be several of them that are traversing across the northwest flow. That's going to be reinforcing the colder air for the good part of the Great Lakes and portions of the Northeast into New England. And at the same time, we've got a trough that's going to be coming in from into the Pacific Northwest that's really going to be impacting a lot of the coastal areas and then subsiding once it reaches the interior regions. So going forward out in the tropics, I think we still have about 2 more weeks left that we really got to be highlighting and concerned about the tropics. And after that, after about the mid-month, I think things are really going to subside for the rest of the season. So here is a system out here by the Bahamas here that we've got to be on the lookout for potential short-term development. But even more concerning is down there into the Caribbean. This is a disturbance that's going to be drifting into the Western Caribbean. I think that actually this may be a player by the time we get into that second week of November. And if you take a look at some of these EPS guidance, we've got several areas of concern. We have an Eastern Pacific storm that's been really active as of lately. And there's the system out here in the Western Caribbean. And then we also have this little highlighted area in yellow here. But this is the main area of concern because most guidance has this continuing to, slowly start to come together. But I think by the time we head into that second week of November, some of the moisture and the leftover residual moisture for this may actually get picked up and pulled up into the East Coast and bring some very heavy rain across a good part of the Southeast and much of the East Coast. But between now and then, we're going to be seeing a rapid warm up. So I think the Great Lakes and parts of the New England as well as the Northeast stays on the chillier side with the clipper systems that's going to be impacting their area. But everybody else is going to be seeing a slow warm up throughout the week as that ridge will be pretty much locked over the west and trending eastbound, elevating those temperatures to well above average by the time we head into that beginning of that second week of November. So this week we're kind of on the calmer side. Remember, the last week we were very active. And now we're going to be starting the first week of November, definitely on the calmer side. So we have that initial cold front that's going to be leaving some leftover rain showers in deep South Texas And then we have those clipper systems up here along the Great Lakes, as well as into the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast, that will add to those precipitation totals. And then we have that system, that trough, that's going to be impacting mainly the coastal areas across the Pacific Northwest, into Washington, into Oregon, as well as into Northern California. And then notice the dry slot comes back for a good part of the West Coast, much of the Southwest, and much of the interior regions as well. So this is the snow that could unfold with these clipper systems. So plenty warm out west. You only really have sporadic intermountain snows. But yes, with these clipper systems, you're going to be traversing across, and there's going to be, likely 2 of these throughout the week. We're going to be seeing a dusting, possibly 1 to 2 inches of snow across these portions of Minnesota through Wisconsin here into the upper Great Lakes region, into Michigan, and this will be likely into the far interior regions of the mid-Atlantic, getting into southern Canada here, as well as into New England. The only area that could actually pick up some bona fide snows from this is portions of Maine could pick up 3 to 5 inches of snow from this particular system. But once we get into week 2, that's when things get interesting. So that area of disturbed weather that I showed you down there in the Western Caribbean will sit there and just fester kind of really all week long. And if you look at the latest vertical velocity index, it is very bullish out here into the Western Caribbean. So there's a lot of lift that's going to be associated with this. And slowly over time, I think we'll have to watch very heavy rain really unfold across a good part of the Western Caribbean, possibly the Yucatan Peninsula here, heading through the Bahamas. And a lot of that moisture, I think, will likely start to lift northbound and traverse up the southeast and up into the East Coast. So yes, by the time we go into that 11th time frame, remember the other dip I showed you in the EPO, now we're going to be seeing a second surge after we see a warm up for about 10 days. Another surge of colder air comes down and then highlights that area in Texas again over Oklahoma, and kind of puts a paint bomb over that region with rain coming back in the picture. I think you're dry until then. So you got about another 10 to 12 day dry spell. And by the time we hit the 11th time frame, we'll have rains coming back in the picture. And that's the same time we'll have all this area of disturbed weather down there in the Western Caribbean and the Eastern Pacific that could try to cross over into the Gulf of Mexico. And all this energy will likely get funneled and be transported into the southeast and ride up the East Coast as we get deeper into that second week of November for that weekend. So here's the latest ensemble guidance on some of these GFS ensembles showing these lowering of pressures coming out of the Western Caribbean near the Yucatan, getting into the Bahamas region. So this area definitely is highlighted with lower pressures, and then we've got significant lift on the vertical velocity index. That could spell trouble, and very active water vapor transport index, almost off the charts, guys. This is pretty extreme. I mean, this is showing extreme amount of rain into these regions. So the combination of that Eastern Pacific storm, the trough that's going to be digging down, and the Western Caribbean activity, all that deep tropical air could get lifted northbound by the time we go into that 11th and 12th time frame of November and be transported up the East Coast, bringing some very heavy rains across a good part of Florida, through the Carolinas, and up the eastern seaboard. So we'll definitely have to be watching this, because this looks to be a very active time frame in the weather department. And yes, the latest print on some of these ensemble guidance that are showing up right now, showing very heavy rain, 400% above average, what you typically see for that second week of November. So this is definitely an area that's going to be really active, as we go into that 12th and 13th and 14th time frame of November. So quieter this week, but then very active going into that second week of November. So, and beyond that, it's still showing a kind of a paint bomb, even on the CFS longer range guidance, as well as we'll have that trough just kind of dig. So it'll originate down there in the Texas region into Oklahoma and likely be transported across the southeast and then really kind of wind up there up into the east, into the East Coast, while we do have several of those clipper systems that continue to drain down from the northwest flow. In combination of that, we could ring out some snow showers by then across a good part of, say, portions of the Ohio Valley, portions of the Mid-Atlantic region, and then portions of New England up here into the Northeast. The 540 line actually drops all the way down into Virginia. So we've got the colder temperatures, and we'll just have to see how much lift is still associated with it by the time it heads up into the Northeast. But this would be a favorite area to see. Some of these areas could see some of the first snows of the season across this region, heading into that 13th, say 14th time frame up there into the Northeast. And it continues, guys. And so the trend going into that November is a ridge west, a trough east, and that's essentially, I think, what's going to unfold. So, sometimes the ridge gets a little bit further off into the central U.S. before the reinforcing shot of colder air comes down, but nonetheless, the main setup going into November is predominantly going to be a ridge west, and then we'll have troughs set up across the central and eastern 2/3 of the U.S., while we have these little clipper systems that come through the upper Great Lakes, across the northern portions of the Mid-Atlantic, and up here into the Northeast into New England as well. And all this will be migrating, coming from, west to east as well. And here's some of the snowfall totals, which could potentially unfold. I think with the ridge really dominating for a good part of the western regions, this is mainly going to be intermountain west snows across these regions. I don't see anything further down into the lower elevations, because those temperatures are going to be plenty warm out there. And then the combination of these little clipper systems that come across, and that system that comes in on the 12th, 13th, and 14th time frame, we'll have to watch these areas and see if some of that snows can be drifting a little bit further south and push towards some of these bigger cities highlighted along the I-94 at 5 corridor or not. We'll just have to watch the timing of these particular systems. But I do feel you are going to be cold enough to produce some snow by then. But what happens is by the time we head into that Thursday, so going into that Thanksgiving time frame, where we might not have another cold shot to contend with. So yes, by the time that ridge will be migrating from west to east again, with those no cold shot to reinforce that colder air, then much of the country as of right now looks definitely on the warmer side as we trend towards your Thanksgiving time frame, and well above average for a good part of the West, and really highlighted across the central US as well. And if we break it down for you overall for the month of November, these were the most elevated precipitation anomalies. So the combination of that lowering pressures down there into the Gulf of Mexico, some of that moisture will be feeding northbound, and all those systems will be traversing across and elevating into the southeast. So it's more than likely these areas across Texas, across the southern plains, into the southeast, and racing up into the northeast, we'll see plenty of rainfall heading into that November timeframe for your month of November. That was on the latest European guidance, and even all the summary of all the models is kind of hinting at the same thing as the main pocket of focus of energy, where a lot of the action is going to be taking place for the month of November, and where the most systems will be coming together, is really highlighting beginning into that Texas region, into Oklahoma, through Arkansas, through Louisiana, and highlighting up the southeast into Florida, and really migrating up into Kentucky, into Tennessee, going into the Carolinas, and then merging together up the East Coast and up the eastern seaboard with those well above average rains. And sometimes it'd be cold enough will produce some snow showers across those regions, especially as we get deeper into that November timeframe. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch the next update where I protect you before and after storm.